All right, today we're jumping into a really thought-provoking book, Kevin Kelly's The Inevitable.
I mean, that's a pretty wild question, right? But that's the core idea we're digging into here. The idea that there are these deep, powerful currents already pulling us toward a very specific kind of future.
And this all comes from the 2016 book by Kevin Kelly. If you don't know him, he was the founding executive editor of Wired magazine. So yeah, he knows a thing or two about this stuff. He maps out 12 technological forces that he says aren't just possibilities. They're inevitable. So let's see what they are.
So what's the big idea here? What's the thesis that holds all of this together?
Okay, so here's Kelly's main point. He's not trying to predict the next Google or the next iPhone. That's impossible, right? What he is saying is that the overall direction we're headed in, that's not a mystery at all. It's driven by these huge technological shifts that are basically unstoppable.
And he boils all this down to 12 key forces. Now, don't think of these as crystal ball predictions. They're more like trends that are already happening and they're just speeding up. We're going to group them into a few big themes to make sense of it all.
Okay, first up, let's look at the forces that are completely rewiring how we think about, well, stuff. Our data, what we own, and how we connect with people.
The first one is called flowing. Just think about music for a second. We went from having these static things, records, CDs, MP3 files, to just streams, Spotify, right? It's always on, always updating. And this isn't just music. It's happening with everything. Your social media feed, the news, it's all becoming one big, nonstop flow.
And that idea of flowing leads right into the next one, accessing. I mean, why would you own a car with all the insurance and maintenance when you can just tap a button and get an Uber? Why buy 1,000 movies when you can just access Netflix? The whole game is shifting from owning things to just having access to them whenever you want. Ownership is starting to feel like a hassle.
And then you've got sharing. And no, we're not just talking about your vacation photos on Instagram. Kelly means something much bigger. Think about huge collaborative projects like Wikipedia or open source software like Linux. These are things built by millions of people together without some central boss telling them what to do. It's this new kind of digital teamwork on a massive scale.
And get this is what really blows my mind. Kelly thinks on a scale of 1 to 10, we're only at a 2 when it comes to sharing. A 2! That means like 80% of this revolution in collaboration hasn't even happened yet. We're just getting started.
Okay, so we've got this new connected reality. The next group of forces is all about what happens when we make that reality smart. We're layering intelligence on top of, well, everything.
So Kelly points to 3 big ways this is happening. First, there's cognifying. It's a fancy word for making things smart. We're taking normal, dumb objects, a car, a toaster, your running shoes, and plugging them into powerful AI in the cloud. But all that smart stuff creates a ton of information, right? Which leads to the next force, filtering. This is your TikTok For You page or your Netflix recommendations. It's super intense personalization that doesn't just find what you like, it literally predicts what you'll want next. And finally, to make all that work, you need tracking. We're moving to a world where basically everything is monitored. Our steps, our heart rate, where we go. All of this data is collected, supposedly to make our lives better.
So you see what's happening here? You put those 3 together, cognifying, filtering, and tracking. And what do you get? You get a world that doesn't just wait for you to tell it what to do. It knows you. It anticipates what you need before you do. It's a world that's constantly trying to serve you.
And where does all this lead? To a kind of dizzying new reality. A world where nothing is ever really done. Everything is in a constant state of becoming something else.
And this happens in a kind of cycle. It starts with becoming. Think about it. Products aren't fixed things anymore. They're services that are always being upgraded, like the software on your phone. Because they're always changing, it allows for constant remixing. We can take something old, like a newspaper, and unbundle it into separate articles, then recombine them into a personalized feed. And how do we experience all this? Through deeper interacting. We're moving past just staring at screens and into things like virtual and augmented reality. And here's the kicker. In a world where an AI can give you any answer instantly, what becomes truly valuable? Questioning. Asking a great question is now more important than knowing a great answer.
So, what's the end game? Where is all of this actually going? Well, Kelly says these 11 forces aren't just a random list. They're all weaving together, building towards one final, 12th force he calls beginning. This is the big one. He's talking about a single planetary system that connects all humans and all machines into one giant global network. It's not really an end, though. It's more like a brand new starting line for humanity.
Okay, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds amazing, right? A super smart world that takes care of everything for us. But yeah, not everyone is sold on this utopian vision.
And critics have a pretty good point. Take this review from Publishers Weekly. It says that Kelly is great at spotting these trends, but he doesn't really wrestle with the dark side of them. You know, what about privacy when we're tracking everything? What about the hidden biases in AI filtering? The critique is that by being so optimistic, the book doesn't really equip us to deal with the very real problems these forces create.
And that really brings us to the most important point. Whether you think all this sounds like a utopia or a dystopia, it doesn't really matter. Kelly's main argument is that these changes are happening. They're inevitable. The internet isn't being uninvented. AI isn't going back in the bottle. These forces are here, and they're here to stay. So the real question isn't, how do we stop this? It's, how do we steer it? How do we build the right tools and create the right rules to make sure this inevitable future is one we actually want to live in? These forces are coming. The only real question left is, how are you going to deal with them?